You represent a district that is formerly Republican. You're talking to Republican voters every day. What is your feel for the bipartisanship of the support by voters of the Biden agenda?
The American people want Washington to help solve some of the problems and challenges they're facing, including things like being unable to afford college, being unable to afford childcare, the high price of prescription drugs, our aging infrastructure, the need to help more seniors age in place. That's what they want leaders in Congress to be focused on, not opposing an administration, but solving problems. And to hear Senator Mitch McConnell say that all he wants to do is oppose an administration, a party, rather than evaluate the quality of the ideas that the president's putting forth, is really disappointing, and I think should be a letdown to every voter, regardless of whether their party preference.
President Biden has promised no tax increases for anybody reporting less than $400,000 in income. Let's listen to what he said about the people who would see tax increases in his bill.
We're not going to deprive these executives of their second or third home, travel privately by jet. It's not going to affect their standard of living at all, not a little tiny bit. But I can affect the standard of living that people I grew up with. If they have a job, if they have child care and can afford it, so 20 million women can be back in the workforce. This is just makes no sense to me. But I'm going to have to be able to explain this, and I'm going to keep banging at it.
Congressman Porter, you have cross-examined some of those people in House hearings, some of those very rich people who are worried about what this bill might mean to them. What's your reaction to the way Joe Biden describes the possible impact on their lifestyle, which he says is zero?
Well, I love that President Biden that we just saw. I love a President Biden who's making it clear that what's at stake is helping the American families. What's at stake is growing our economy. This isn't about making sure that the wealthiest of the wealthy never have to share any of the wealth to benefit from the collective well-being of our country. Let's be clear about what taxes are. Taxes are an investment that we collectively make in growing our economy and in making sure that we remain the best country in the world. That's what taxes are. They're an investment, and we should all be willing to do our part and pay our fair share in achieving that goal, which is really making America flourish.
And we're not all paying our fair share because the current estimates indicate that as much as close to $1 trillion a year could be collected by the IRS if we would just give them the resources they need. Let's listen to the way Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen talked about this.
It's really shocking and distressing to see estimates suggesting that the gap between what we're collecting in taxes under our tax law and what we should be collecting if everybody were paying the taxes that are due, that amounts to over $7 trillion over a decade. And we're trying to make meaningful steps to close that gap.
And Congressman Porter, history will show that the IRS lack of resources was a direct decision made by Republicans in Congress to not adequately fund the IRS.
No, I mean, Treasury Secretary Yellen shouldn't be shocked at this situation. It is the result of policy choices that Republicans have made to gut the IRS from simply doing its job. And who does this benefit? This benefits cheaters. Call a spade. There are cheaters. And who are they? They are disproportionately the nation's largest corporations and the mega ultra wealthy. Meanwhile, everybody else does their very best, sits down, goes through TurboTax, digs out their folder, accounts for, the $10 they gave to charity and the books they donated. Well, large corporations get away with cheating the rest of us out of $1 trillion a year. We can do something about that by simply fully funding the IRS and allowing it to do its work of enforcing the tax code.
Congressman Porter, we are seeing tonight that the Republican Party in the House seems to be divided over the fiction that most of them advance about the last presidential election. But what we don't see is any real stepping forward by any Republicans in the House to try to become anything that you could call a governing partner, even by offering some counter proposal to the proposals that you're supporting, some lesser version of it or some different version of anything. Do you have any sense that there is any possibility of a governing partner of any kind in the Republican House?
It really concerns me because even compared to the last Congress, we have seen real changes in Republicans' willingness to work across the aisle. I have legislation where I have a Republican co-sponsor just 2 years ago, a year ago, and I can't find one this time. And so a lot of these topics that are bipartisan, these problems that are longstanding bipartisan policy solutions, we're seeing a Republican Party that is too busy fighting with each other to be fighting for the American people. And that's a harm that we all have to deal with. It doesn't just hurt Republicans, it hurts Americans.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.